Debbie, come on up. As we talk about the men and women that have given so much, oftentimes it's the families that give as well. I had the privilege to meet Debbie. It's been almost a year in this journey, and I'm going to let Debbie tell her story. But she's dedicated her life to this effort and helping those men and women as they return.
Thank you so much, Dave. It is an honor to be back here, and thank you to each one of you that came out. He kind of talked a little bit about the life change that happens in this place and the life-changing events. And for me, my major life-changing event was August 2nd, 2006, when my son, Mark Allen Lee, a Navy SEAL, stood up in the direct line of fire 3 different times that day, willingly gave his life to save his teammates. And I have been blessed to have adopted or inherited some amazing men. And I often tell people that Mark was my kid who loved to give gifts, and he would hunt for hours and hours, and he'd find that perfect gift, and he'd come home and he'd be so excited, and he'd have it wrapped specially, like, Mom, you gotta open this. And I remember one Christmas he brought a gift home, and I said, no, put it under the Christmas tree. I'm not gonna have anything to open if you don't put it under there. Christmas morning won't be exciting. And he said, no, Mom, you gotta see it. And he'd be so excited with what he found, and he knew that it would be something that would be very special to me. And when I said no again, he ripped it open, and he opened it, and it was a set of gold flatware, not solid gold, but gold in color. It matched my china perfect. And after we lost Mark, I thought of the gift of his teammates. And I remember meeting with them. I had pictures that President Bush had signed to each one of them, addressed to them, and I called and I said, I've got something special I'm bringing over for you guys. And I shared with them that night how Mark loved to give gifts, and that my final gift was his teammates. And he intended for me to rip that open immediately and get to know each one of them. And so when they were deployed, I don't know how many of you know Jocko, follow Jocko, or Leif. That Jocko was Mark's task unit commander. And Leif shares often that when they finally called me, when they knew I'd been notified, and I was concerned for them. They're in the combat zone. I can't focus, I can't function, but I don't have any life-saving, life-changing decisions that are going to need to be made. But they did. And when I got on the phone, I'm like, are you okay? What can I do for you? How can I be praying for you? And that made such a difference in those lives. And I started to get to know each one, and I'd get pictures, and I'm like, who's the one tall one on the left? Who's this one? And it's been almost 17 years since we lost Mark. And I have got to meet some amazing young men that I call my boys. And I didn't have any choice in the news that was given to me on August 2nd, 2006. But I did have a choice how I responded. And for me to curl up in a ball and feel sorry for myself, that wouldn't bring Mark back. We all know what stress does physically to us. That destroys our bodies. And my choice was to put on Mark's boots, pick up his weapon, and stay in the fight for every man and woman who served. Stay in the fight for every other family who's lost a loved one. And so when we started our Helping Heroes Heal program, when I realized how they were struggling with post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, and suicide, I'm like, we gotta make a difference. And there's so many things out there that are just masking the symptoms. They're not healing them. And when we found the hyperbaric oxygen and we did the research on it, we said, this is what we want to do to help heal our veterans. And we've had over 300 veterans go through our program. And I get the blessing to see Mark still saving his teammates' lives. He's not physically here, but he's still saving lives in such an amazing way. And so we were honored when we got the call and asked to be partners and continue to help our veterans, to continue to save lives and change lives. And what's happening here is a miracle for the life change. And I've got one of my adopted boys that'll be coming up later to share. But I would just encourage you, please be generous tonight as you continue to support our men and women who are willing to give their lives for you and for the freedoms that we enjoy every day. So thank you, Dr. Frati. Thank you, Dave, for allowing us to be part of this and to continue to change lives in such an amazing way.
My name is Crystal, and I am one of the veteran recipients of this program. And I served in the United States Air Force for 20 years, and I came in a young 20-something-year-old, all excited. Knew I was gonna get my college paid for, I was gonna travel, all those things, and I was a young, healthy girl. And 20 years later, I came out, I went to Iraq for 13 years. I thought, wow, I'm doing okay. And I continued, I worked in the medical service, I worked in family practice, and I was a combat medic, and I continued in medicine. And I was fine, but 6 years ago, they moved me to urgent care, and that's where I had my first trigger. And it's upsetting to talk about because he's correct in that nobody understands it's a biological wound. I just knew I was a mess, and everybody said, just get back to work. I lost the only career I knew. I don't mean to get emotional, but I lost the only career I knew. And I'm glad there's women in the room, because after 13 years of combat, I was told it was PMS. I was told it was menopause. And it was difficult. So my life continued to go down the rabbit hole. My marriage continued to go down the rabbit hole. And I didn't understand. So we moved to the villages, and there was an ad in the paper one day for AVIV taking veterans. It changed my life. And I don't normally get this emotional, I'm so sorry. But it made that much of a difference in my life. When I walked in here, I was immediately validated for the first time. And the diagnostic modalities they had here said, look, it is in your head. And so it wasn't PMS. All the tools the doctors had couldn't fix this. All the pills that they gave me couldn't fix this. But oxygen under pressure did. And I'm so grateful, and I have my life back, and I have my marriage back. And I'm sorry again to be so emotional, but I'm standing here today because of this. And I thank everybody who's involved, because I have my life back. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey everybody, I'm Jocko Willink, and I just want to say hello to everyone down at the AVIV Clinic. And I really wanted to say thank you to the AVIV Clinic and to Dr. Frati. I know that the techniques that you are using down there are incredibly impactful to people that go through that protocol and procedure. And I know this very well because I have friends that have gone through it, including my brother right here, Cowie, who got done with that a little while ago. He's a guy that I went to combat with. He sacrificed a lot for the country, and he was in a pretty rough place. And look at him now, nothing but smiles. So thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you can, try and help out. Thank you.
So Jocko gave my intro, everybody. I'm Cowie. I was a Navy SEAL. I served with Mama Lee's, Debbie Lee's son, Mark, in Iraq. I always knew I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. My favorite movie growing up was Rambo, and I was always into commando stuff. So yeah, from a young age, I knew I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I got there, made it happen, and my second deployment was incredibly hard. It was living and dying and everything at the same time. That deployment, I was shot in a major ambush. It was very traumatic, and it still kind of chokes me up to think about the specific things that happened that day. We lost Mark. He was the first SEAL to die in Iraq. Lost my buddy Mike Mansour, who posthumously received the Medal of Honor. He got the Silver Star the day that he rescued me out of fire. Ryan Joe, later from his injuries, who was injured in that same battle, and later Chris Kyles, who experienced a lot of loss. From the SEAL teams, I went and worked for our intelligence agencies for about 8 years, and it was just as hairy. I was actually blown up twice while I was doing that. I had no real issues immediately while I was in the combat zone. I actually felt like I was at home there. But when I came back, I started experiencing an incredible amount of problems. I was going through severe bouts of depression, anxiety. I had problem formulating words and cognitive issues. I had issues maintaining meaningful relationships with people. And I was in a really high-level job running an executive protection team, protecting high net worth individual that it fell apart. Before I came to the clinic here, I can say I was at the worst point in my life. I was going to lose my family. I was failing in my job. And I was as close as I've ever been to taking my life. And this was after my post-assessment. It was that close, or pre-assessment, I'm sorry. I had my pre-assessment, and I was just in the worst place in my life, and I almost pulled the trigger on myself. But something stopped me, and I said, what if this is the miracle that you need, that'll heal you so that you don't feel this way and you don't think this way, and you can turn your life around. And thank you, Mama Lee, for pressing me to get here and believing in me, and my wife for, staying on me to get here. But I got here, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Right from the beginning, everybody was so accepting of me, and I know I was very standoffish and probably didn't smile and just looked totally depressed. I was really in the worst shape of my life. But I'd say about my 20th dive, I started to feel better. I didn't have suicidal thoughts. I didn't feel depressed. I started to believe in myself. I started to believe that, there was light at the end of the tunnel, and it just kept scaffolding and scaffolding onto more positivity, more belief, no depression, no suicidal ideation, to where I'm at now. I feel like I'm completely renewed, and I'm just so thankful, Mama Lee, for your foundation. Mark is absolutely working and saving teammates. Dr. Shai, for your research and your clinic. Everybody here at AVIV, thank you so much. And I have my family, I have myself, and I am back. I'm back to my renewed self, and it couldn't have happened without the donations and people like you. Thank you very much.